Hey, welcome back to this Voiceflow tutorial. In the previous video, we were able to retrieve the user's preferred food category using buttons, and then we set that value to a variable called meal type. Now, what we would like to do in this video, or right now, is we would like to retrieve the menu from this Google Sheet here, right? And the way we will do that is using the get step. Now let me take this out. So now just come to the API step, and we use the get step here. Now this get step is going to help us retrieve the information from the food menu. Okay, so now we'll see how that works in a bit. But first, let's connect these. Good. Now in the get step, okay, I think I have to reload again. Don't know what's going on with Voiceflow. Okay, now we can see here that we've connected everything. Now let's configure our get request. So we need the URL to the food menu. We can get that from Sheetbest. So we just come to menu connection and we copy that link, switch over here, and then we can paste this here. So that's the first one. Then the next thing, again, if you remember, we need to set our header, right? So come here and say content type, again application /JSON. That's what we expect. So now we can test this get API step just like we tested the post API step, regardless of whether it's connected to anything or not. So you can test it and hit send. You see it returns all the information that we're looking for in JSON format, right? So this is the exact same information that we have in our Google Sheet. Now, where it gets a bit tricky dealing with get request is that this, as it is, you cannot send it to the user. You cannot send this to the user, right? It has to be well formatted. It has to be, printed properly and all of that, right? So it's tricky to work with the get request this way because you now have to parse the data. What I mean by parse is you need to restructure the data and make sure it is in the right format for users' consumption. Now, in the next set of tutorials, right, we would look into using something like Airtable, which, basically makes it easier for you to retrieve data from your Google Sheets. But for now, I would like to show us how to use other things for now to, parse the data. Now, so we can also, so one other thing to note is that all this information is being stored in a Voiceflow internal entity, right, called response, right? So that response, so this is automatically stored in response. Whatever it is you're getting from an API is being stored in a variable, an internal variable called, or entity called response, right? So we can easily check if this is true, right, by again printing. So we can just come here and say, just drag this here, then we say the response is, and then just come here and put response. Oh, okay, I think my problem is that I didn't, sorry, it's not, I didn't hit capture response. So if I don't hit capture response, it wouldn't capture anything, right? So I need to hit capture response here, right? Now it's asking me for the object path. Now, okay, let me come back here. Let me get this. Let me use this get request again, and then I'll use this to explain something to us. So let me copy all this, Control C, or you could just come here, Control C, copy that, and then come here and come paste this here. Now, if you look here, it's asking us for an object path, right? And then set that path to a particular variable. What they mean by path in this case is that the JSON value, this, which is equal to a value, an internal value called response, the path that they are looking for is, okay, response, okay, then this is 0, then inside 0 we have meal, and meal has a value of lunch. Inside 0 we have item, and item has a value of grilled chicken. Inside 0 we have category, and category has a value of main, right? And then we have that for 1 and for 2 as well, right? Remember I said JSON is a bunch of key and values. So this is the key here, and this entire thing here is the value separated by comma, and then key again, and then another value, right? And then we also have this as well, key, and then a value, then a key, and then another value, and so on, separated by a comma, right? So we have various key value pairings in this JSON. Now, let's say we want to store the meal. We want to store the meal, so the meal is lunch, or want to do something with the meal, so we need to get that particular meal. What they mean by the object path is response, which is this entire thing, right? Response, then dot 0, right? Is like think of it like a folder path, right? So you enter into the main folder, which is response, then you enter into a subfolder called 0, and then you enter a subfolder called meal before you can hit your file called lunch. So basically it's just response dot 0 dot meal, and this will give you the value of lunch. I think meal is capital letter, right? And then you can do the same for item. This will give you the value of grilled chicken, right? So now that's what they mean by object path, and we can store this in another variable. So we create a different variable, right? And then store whatever it is we want. So let's say we wanted to store the meal, or the meal, or the food itself. You can just say create a variable called food, and then we have response.0.item, and that would be equal to food within the Voiceflow's workflow, right? So now that we're done explaining that, but what I want to do now is that I don't want to save a particular thing, right? I want to save the entire response. So what I will do is that I will equate this response here that's internal to Voiceflow, and I'll equate it to a new variable so that I can use that new variable to do all the extraction and all the parsing that I said we're going to do. Now, the next thing we'll just do is to say, okay, response, which is the internal variable, then we create a new variable, right? Okay, yeah, create variable, right? So we can say this to be menu response, right? So I can call this menu response and then create that variable, and then equate this to menu response. Good. Okay, Voiceflow is misbehaving again, so let me just reload that. Mind you, it doesn't always behave this way. In fact, this is the first time I'm noticing this, right? But you can see here, response has been set to menu response, so we're good. So now when I come here to print, I can simply say menu response. But one thing is that this menu response is not just any value, right? It's an object basically, right? It's a JSON thing. It's not a string. So it would be difficult for me to just print it out like this as a variable, but just so that we can see how it looks, let's just do that. So I don't think I need to print, I don't think I need to go too far. I can just run from here. Yeah, so you can see the response is object dot object dot object, right? So it's just basically telling you that this is a JSON response, really, right? So, but if I say wanted us to see, okay, let me just, let's capture another response, right? So let's say the object path now. So let's say response dot 0 dot item, right? We know this will give us the food, so we can create a new variable. So we can just say sample food, right? So equates to sample food, and that will be that about that. Now I can come here and print sample food instead. So you say the sample food is, come here and say sample food, right? So now if I run this again, so you can see the sample food is grilled chicken. So that is basically how you go through the path in Voiceflow. Now in the next video, right, what we will do is that we will basically use JavaScript to parse the data that we've received. That response we've received, now we need to parse it and make sure that it is in the correct format, right, before we serve it to the user, right? So that's what we're going to do in the next video. Thank you very much for watching so far, and I hope it's making sense. I'll see you in the next one.